Moved out of the mountains on stage 11 on Wednesday, leaving the Pyrenees behind on the 192-kilometre ride between Andorra and Perpignan. Germany's Jan Ulrich was wearing the leader's yellow jersey and expecting a relatively easy afternoon. The first major breakaway of the day came as the race hit the flat roads leading into Perpignan. 4 riders involved: the Russian Alexander Gonchenkov, George Hincapie of the United States, the Frenchman Philippe Gaumont, and also the Belgian Wilfried Peters. 2 minutes was their lead over the main bunch, some 36 kilometres from the finish line. That main bunch included the yellow jersey of Jan Ulrich, but not last year's winner, Bjarne Riis, who was lying in 5th place overall. Riis was caught up in another group a little further back along the road. There were a few more surprises in store on the stage.
Not quite sure why, as we look at the second group at the moment, why the rider from Telecom went across with the Aubervilliers ride trying to close that gap down on his own. I think it was Riis just showing his strength at the moment. Here they go, they're going to caught up, going to catch him up now. So, yeah, so Riis and Lino went across, and Bogart, and suddenly they're all back together. Well, the word will come through any moment now to the riders that the junction being made, so we now got the pack all back together. Haven't any information about the stragglers at the moment, as whether anybody has been dropped off the back. I hope to pick that up for you later on as the publicity cavalcade starts going through. The ladies from AGF, the assurance company, on their motorcycles, just going through. They head to just some nice AGF cars, and the girls go on the other side of the road in these motorbikes. There must be around about, I suppose, 15 on either side of the road, and they go through and they stand up in this pedals, but on the footrest, and they wave to the crowd and everything else, and the crowd wave back, and they've got flags on the back of the motorbike advertising AGF and so on. And so now is the time when the crowd waiting at the finish are going to be entertained by the publicity cavalcade coming through, waiting while this race comes in aside.
This is Festina riding on their front. That's
40 seconds now, the gap, 40 seconds.
I wonder why the Festina are riding on the front, Dave. They've no sprint in their team.
Probably just to keep Veronica. 2 kilometres to go, they could hold on then. It's 40 seconds is the gap, so it certainly looks that they might get this one, and no chance then for the team of Gant to pull it back. Moncassin in 1997, up to the stage in the Puy de Fou, had got 6 second places this year. He got 8 third places, and of course he then had somewhat similar situations there afterwards in the Tour. So in fact, so far he's nearly got looking for a win today, but he's not going to get it, I don't think, unless something magical happens right now.
Here's
and the Telecom team is starting to go through. That might in fact cut it down, but it's only 40 seconds. 2 kilometres to go. Can the Telecoms pull it back? Can they put Zabel in with a shout then? These are the 3 men who have stayed away. On the front, Debian in the covetous colours, red and white. The gap is now down to 35 seconds. They can see the 1 kilometre to go. Bridge in the distance as Uchikov takes over in the yellow. Finko comes through in the blue and starts to sprint down the right-hand side. Uchikov is onto him, and the covetous rider behind Debian, and still the big pack is coming up behind. Can they catch them inside this final kilometre? They can't afford to hang about.
No, I think Uchikov is possibly the fastest sprinter, but the other guys know it, so I'm not going to help him out in any way. So I think whoever leads the sprint off was nearly dooming himself, because Desbien's a good sprinter, but Finko, I'm not too sure how he's like. Looking at the way he is physically on his bike, he could do it, but look at the peloton where they're going here.
And they're still taking it in turns to jump all over the place. They can't afford to freewheel at all, because the Telecom train is up and steaming right now. And here they come in towards the finishing straight. Looks like they probably made enough to get by, because the officials have not moved out the yellow car of Mavic nor the motorcycle, so it means they're going to make it to the finish.
Well, with a headwind we have here, Finko is in a very good position here, lying in 3rd place. Uchikov is the fastest of the 3 of them, but leading the sprint off like this into a headwind is going to be very difficult for him.
Well, they won't be able to see the chase coming up behind them as Finko launched himself over on the left left-hand side of our screen. Finko goes for a long one. Uchikov comes up at him, and they're neck and neck at the moment, but Finko's got a slight lead. Finko has something like about half a length lead, but Uchikov starts to power for him. Can Uchikov add to his already successes in the Tour as he closes Desbian against the barriers, and Desbian throws up his arms in disappointment as Uchikov gets that one from Desbian. Finko was behind him, and so here comes the big sprint with Minali, Baldato, Zabel, but I think it's going to be for Zabel this time, and Moncassin is going to try and sprint past the Zabel. Can he get this time on the far side? Don't know if that one actually went to Zabel or Moncassin or the rider over the left-hand side, but to see that one. But the first, second and third went to our breakaway group. They went away about 12 kilometres for the finish.
Dave, I wouldn't announce yet Uchikov winner because we saw him there coming into the final 50 metres or so. He moved over to the left, and Desbian was coming through and nearly put him into the barriers. So I'd be very surprised now if Desbian's team manager Cyril Guimard from Cofidis does not put in a protest. And I think because Cofidis have been looking for this win, look at here, see here again. So I think that Desbian being French, of course, there's nothing to do with it here at all. But I think that and Uchikov being a friend of mine, I think he, being honest about it, he did actually move into the left and a little bit too much to put. Watch it again in slow motion, Dave.
Make your own mind up. Watch this. On the right, does he get blocked?
Look at the face of Desbian. He really got a fright there. Look at him. Looks across, his eyes looks across to the right, across to Uchikov to kind of say, what are you doing?
There's a complaint. There's the thoughts that he might have won.
Sergei Uchikov not happy at all after hearing he had been stripped of his stage win, but the race officials certainly weren't changing their minds, despite the protests of the Ukrainian. So Laurent Desbian wins his first ever stage on the Tour de France, though he looked a little shell-shocked at how it had all happened. Desbian wins. Finko was second, Uchikov only third. The main bunch came in 18 seconds later.
Welcome to Eurosport's coverage of this stage of the Tour de France, which really is the race of truth, the race against the watch, the time trial stage in the Tour de France. And this is the one which really a lot of people have been looking forward to. Perhaps the Brits thinking that Chris Bourne might do a decent ride, but unfortunately with the crash that he had the other day when he ricked his neck and has had some problem with two vertebrae, it meant that he dropped way down the general classification, and in fact he's already gone round the course and finished, and at the moment he's lying in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6th position at the moment. His time, Chris Bourman's time for the 55 kilometres was, let's get it out for you, my massive notes here. Chris Bourman, his time of 1 hour, 23 minutes and 9 seconds. Looks rather nice and sunny, that picture you've got on your screen at the moment, but believe you me, it's damp around the course. We've had little spasms of rain ever since this morning, and up on the top of the big mountain that they're climbing today, a 14-kilometre climb to the top. There was mist hanging about this morning. It was very chilly indeed, and the spectators were all wrapped up ready for the day. It's going to be a bit unfortunate, I think, for some of the later starters if the rain does come down, because it's going to make the descents very tricky indeed, and therefore the early starters will have had the advantage. And the man who's set the fastest time so far is that of Frank van den Broek. 1 hour, 21 minutes and 8 seconds. There you see on your screen, that's the time check at that particular point, and Van den Broek still the fastest there. He's been pretty quick all the way around, Van den Broek, the fastest at 26.5 kilometres. Fastest at 41 kilometres, and he's the fastest now. But interesting enough, Chris Bourman in the first 12.5 kilometres, the time check there at Saint-Chamond, just out of Saint-Chamond, he was the fastest, was Chris, 14 minutes and 46 seconds. But really, once the course then went up, he went back and back, and in fact he was caught by Van den Broek, who started 2 minutes after him as they came in toward the finish here at Saint-Étienne. So a good ride by, I think, Chris. I think you'd be happy with that one on the basis it isn't 100% fit at the moment. I think it bodes well for the final time trial when we get up to Disneyland on the edge of Paris, when I think he will find the flatter conditions much more to his liking, and let's hope that his back is fully recovered by then. So let's put you in the picture about what has happened, having updated you on Chris Boardman. When we start this morning, the first rider was off at 2 minutes past 10 Central European time. That's 2 minutes past 9 your time back in Great Britain. So whilst many of you are just getting over your breakfast or going to work or thinking about what you're going to do for the day, we were actually starting on the time trial because the riders start at 2 minute intervals. There are 175 riders, and the last man to start will be Jan Ulrich at 10 past 4 Central European time. You can see that damp patch on the hat there, the Mappe rider. I don't think that's going to be from the rain. It might be, but generally speaking, it's to do with the sweat, because all these riders, as they go off, or before they go off on the course, they get on the rollers and they warm themselves up. They're a fixed device where the back wheel's locked into a particular frame, and you can have the roller behind, and you can increase or decrease the effect on your bike by a little lever on the front, and then you can just make sure that you warm yourself up nicely for the start. There's no good riding around the block here because we're right on the edge of Saint-Etienne. There's nowhere really that you can ride. Most of the riders have ridden down from their hotel, but then when they get down into the area before the start, they get on the rollers and off they go. Neil Stevens coming in here, not his strongest forte, time trialing, and he's just gone round. You can see he's 98th at the moment, 1 hour 27 minutes and 39 seconds, and you can see by the haggard look on his face, I think he's glad that's over and done with. The time trialling is always in the reverse order of the general classification, and the only time it's broken is if there are two riders from the same team who are following on behind each other, and often they will just bring in another rider. Say that if you've got two riders the same, then the next rider in will be brought into place and swapped over, because they don't want any way in which two riders will coerce with each other to help and set the opportunity of a bit of a drag going on to streamline somebody behind. So they are going to start 2 minute intervals as per the general classification, unless two of the teammates are going to be setting off at the same time, or 2 minutes apart, in which case the organisation will slightly alter things. Who's coming in to finish in Saint-Etienne? You can see the leaves have been coming down. The rain we had last night battered the trees, battered everything. We had enormous thunderstorms, and now the gentle rain's been falling, making the course quite damp on this 55-kilometre time trial from Saint-Etienne. It's a virtually square-shaped course, just tipped on its side a little bit. We're in the top left-hand corner, slightly tipped, and they've got this big climb of the Col de la Croix de Chabourey. It's a 14-kilometre climb, a 5.9% climb, and from the bottom they got from 375 metres above sea level to 1,200 metres above sea level, some 825 metres climbing. And see, when I went round this morning, I missed the first little bit out down to Saint-Chamond, because I was staying in Saint-Chamond, so I missed the first 6.5 kilometres, which seemed to be fairly flat, but nevertheless not particularly straight. That afterwards, well, you're nodding your head, but that afterwards I was amazed. We're looking at our profile course here. I don't think it actually in any way typifies what the race is like out there. I don't think, on the bit I drove around, all by the first 6 kilometres, I don't think I found more than 50 metres of flat. It was either up or down or round a corner.
Well, Dave, I was at myself earlier on the circuit, and believe me, looking at the profile we have here in our books, the first 6.5 kilometres, the first 12.5 kilometres looks like it's like going downhill. One small little up in it, but the first, say, 500 metres like a false flat, then you go up like a wall, very, very steep, for about 500 metres. Then it kind of flattens out a bit, and it goes round and twists around a bit, going downhill. Then it goes up again, like another wall. Like you're talking about like a 42, like a small chain ring, like a 42 with a 16 or 17. Like it's really, really very, very hard. But that isn't all. Then you just drop straight down a very, very twisty twisty road, and you go down into like a what do you call it, like a hole in the road. And unfortunately for some riders, it's already been 4 riders gone off on this very same corner this morning.
Fallen off. Yeah.
One guy has gone off. He went into the barrier at about 75 kilometers an hour, broke his forks, opened up his head. He was taken to, he wanted to finish the race anyway, finish the time trial. He brought him to the hospital, had x-rays and everything else, and he found he was okay, and he told him he could start this tomorrow. But I don't think he'll go very far, because he's got a few stitches in his head as well, so very, very dangerous. Then anyway, once you get through that very dangerous corner, you start going up again. So the first 6 kilometres were actually very, very difficult. So I'm not surprised when I see the riders over there in front of us there, warming up on rollers and everything else, and the sweat coming out of them, because with the start of the time trial being here in the centre of Saint-Etienne. There's nowhere to really warm up, so the riders have to get warm on the rollers, and with the start being very, very difficult, they have to be warm starting up. Otherwise, you're going to lose time in the first 4 or 5 kilometres.
Well, I'm glad I didn't go that first 6 kilometres. I thought it was bad enough, the bit I drove from then onwards. But from then on, and we'll pick up some of these riders and go most of the way around with the top boys, because what we'll do is have the, not the helicopters, but the cameras will go out with maybe the last 3 as such, and you'll see for yourself just what the course is like. And to me, Stephen, I've seen a number of the time trials on the Tour de France in recent years. I think it's probably the hardest I've seen. I'm not talking about we've had them go straight up the mountains like last year, which is a hard thing to climb because you were growing up a true mountain time trial as such. It's just the intensity of up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down.
Up, down, up, down, up, down.
Isn't it?
No,
Or
I think,
down,
Dave,
up, down, up, down,
I must agree, Dave. It is definitely the hardest time trial I've seen, apart from the mountain time trials. It's the hardest time trial I've seen on a Tour de France, and I've ridden 10 and I've followed 4, so say in the last 15 years of the Tour de France, it's the hardest time trial I've ever seen. And you were saying earlier on that there's hardly 50 metres of flat in it, and I would definitely agree, because there's not only less than 50 metres of flat, there's less than 50 metres of straight road on it. You're twisting and turning all day, very small roads, and I've been around in some of the teams there this morning, and everyone had a certain tactic. The general tactic was between the top riders, the likes of Orlano, Ulrich, Rees, Pontani, Virhanke, they'd all planned on changing bikes on top of this hill here, because the climb we see here is 14 kilometres long. So with the first 6 kilometres being very, very difficult, the idea was to start off on a normal bike for the first half of the race up to the top of the climb, and then change over onto a time trial bike. But that was great this morning when we had dry roads, because they would have maybe lost 15 seconds in changing the bikes. Then they would have gained it then very quickly on the very fast descent then down into Saint-Etienne. But now with the roads being very wet, people are having to rethink now, because the roads under the descents are very, very wet, they're very slippy, so they may lose 15 seconds in changing the bikes, but they're going to find it very difficult to actually get back that time because of the roads being so slippy.
Well, it's changed. The weather may change the circumstances towards the back end, but nevertheless the top men will race against each other. There's great gaps, as you can see, between some of the riders here. Looking at Duffield, about to go 7th overall, 6 minutes and 2 seconds down on Ulrich, but they're having their own little private battle, because Escartin, next man to go, is at 5:46, so there's only then about 16 seconds between Escartin and Duffield, and Escartin ahead on general classification, 6 seconds ahead. I think Escartin will be looking for this opportunity to try and improve his position and drag away from there. That's the current situation you see on your screen there. Chris Boardman down in 8th spot, won the early starter when it was reasonably dry, but certainly struggling with his bad back, and at least we know he's on his way back into fitness, and I look forward to the final time trial of the Tour de France, see if he can win that one.
Tour de France with
Licha Pilsner.
We're watching Brochard come in. I got him down to the victor today. He's going around here 1:21.45 Garnet clock. He's not going to beat Van den Broek. He could move into 2nd spot at the moment. Jaskula's 6 seconds behind. No, he will probably be 3rd, I should think. So if that stays, at least I've got one man up in the classification. 1:21.58. Brochard goes into 3rd spot.
It's a very good performance by Brochard. He's lost a bit of morale after the other day when he got left behind on the stage into Andorra. He punctured, and his teammates didn't wait for him because they were actually preparing the final climbs for Virhanke. So they did a little bit demoralised after it, and I would quite agree with him, because in the same day he lost his polka dot Grand Prix of the Mountains jersey to Virhanke, and also lost all chance of finishing in the, maybe not all chance, but a lot of his chance of finishing up in the first 10 now.
Well, here's another man who's looking for a reasonable spot in the Tour de France. Then it all, Bobby Julich, just gone across the line. A great character. Spoke to him the other day about the Tour de France, and he's really opened his eyes. He rode the Tour of Spain last year and did well enough to get himself a contract with Cofidis, and I think he's found that time trial a bit on the tough side for him. But Brochard then moving to 3rd spot with that 1:21.58, and the leaderboard is as follows. Van den Broek is in the lead, The Belgian is at 1 hour 21 minutes and 8 seconds for the 55 kilometres. In second spot at 6 seconds is Jaskula, and in third spot is Brochard at 50 seconds. I put Brochard down as a likely winner today, but it's a big long shot as far as I was concerned, Steve, because I thought after he got left behind, he would obviously be a bit upset by it all, but he's ridden a little less tempo than the rest of the team, I thought, for the 2 days after that. He lost his general position, and I thought perhaps he was saving himself for the Tour de France. And this man, Pantani, I've also got him, by the way, in the top 3, because I thought when I looked at the course, it was going to be a climber's course, or something like Brochard, who can both climb and drive as well. But I think this man might do quite a fair old ride today. Let's hope it isn't too wet, because he's crazy when it comes to descending, isn't he, eh?
He is. Well, I just hope myself it does do reasonably well, because I've just been to his motor home there up on the start line, and I said to him, well, Ponce, what bike do you reckon to ride, you know? So if you see him riding a normal bike here, I told him to ride a normal bike, because he's actually going to start off riding a time trial bike and change down top of the hill. Whereas I said to him, like, you should at least do it the other way around, because the first 6 kilometers being very difficult. Then you have to climb a 14 kilometers. Like, I wouldn't ride it. Nobody would ride I don't think would ride a time trial bike up that, you know. So he said, okay, Steve, what do you think? I said, well, if I was you, I'd ride my normal bike with the tri-handlebars on it to the top of the climb, see how the weather is then. If you see the weather is still very, very wet and very slippy, but then you decide then you take the risk and you ride the normal bike to the finish. Or if you see the weather, the road is is drying up and you feel okay, to take the risk of losing your 10 or 15 seconds and getting onto your time trial bike and having a go then. So I see he actually listened to me, because he left there, we saw, on his normal road bike. So I just hope for my sake as well that he does do well, because if you remember a few years ago when the time trial up to Morzine, I met him before the start. I said to him, what gear are you putting on? So he told me the gear he was putting on. I said to him, no, that isn't the one to do. You got to do a bigger chain ring and whatever. And he did it, and he finished third in the time trial. I moved up into second or third overall on GC, so he thanked me after that. So today he's obviously listened to me again, so keep the fingers crossed, Dave.
If you see Stephen Roche walking around with a bike wrapped round his neck one day, you'll know he's got it wrong, but so far he's got it right. Thank you, Stephen, for that in-depth knowledge of these things. Pantani start this morning, 5 minutes 29 seconds down on Ulrich. We've seen the Bjorn Ries getting up into the start-finish area. He was 4:53 down on Ulrich this morning, and Bjorn Ries a great time trial. Actually, I saw Bjorn Ries riding around on these new Pinarello bicycles, presumably that's his time trial bike, which may be up on the top of the mountain for them to change. And it's an unusual thing. It's an outsized ladies bike. He's got this enormous down tube which swirls down, follows the line of the front wheel. And it was the one they tried to get approved before the prologue and got slung out. Mr. Pinarello has been sort of cutting bits off and doing things to it, and I hope we have a good look at it later on, because it's the most unusual machine. But I couldn't comprehend what they were trying to achieve by it anyway, because it didn't look as rigid as I would like. But anyway, we'll see it later on. So this is Bjorn Ries. He's got a big job to do today, lying 4th overall in general classification, 4 minutes 53 seconds down on Ulrich. And I must admit, Stephen, I didn't put Ulrich or Ries or Olano in my top 3 predictions today. I thought they're good time trials, but I thought it was a mountain climbers course for Veronk, Brochard, Pantani, et al. What do you think about that?
Well, you're right in one sense, Dave, but it's not a strictly mountain climbers climb, because you're talking about Morzine or Alpe d'Huez, but a rider that can ride time trials will always get over the circuit like today. So I would say today you'll have Ries, Ulrich and Orlano up in the first 3. I don't know in which order, but I reckon we'll be seeing them up there, because a time trial is a time trial. You have to have a certain kind of inboard, kind of built-in kind of judging system, where you just don't know how to just judge yourself on the hill and for the duration of the circuit. But I think that today we'll see I think we'll see Ries maybe today winning the time trial, Dave.
And you can see the pain and suffering on Simon's face here, just what time trialing does. There's nowhere to hide the time trial. They call it the race of truth. You have no wheel to follow, nobody to blame. It's just your job of hanging on in there, riding yourself into oblivion. And of course, some of the riders who are way down on general classification just ridden around at a respectable rate of knots to keep their legs going after yesterday's relaxing day, when they would have done a bit of riding round. But certainly the travel all the way up from the finish at Perpignan by air, then going out and doing a few kilometres yesterday. Some of them will have just ridden around today, waiting for tomorrow, because looming in the distance is the climb of the Alpe d'Huez. I actually drove only halfway up after Perpignan and stopped at Nîmes. Of course, those of you who know about these things will say, ah, yes, that's where denim comes from, denim, because that's where the material was actually invented. Yes.
We just saw Francois Simon just giving a little bit of a hand signal to somebody on the side of the road. For your own information, there's actually the feeding station starts there. Different teams have their team soigneurs up there giving out bottles or a little bit of a food drink or whatever they have. And Simon there obviously was saying to his soigneur, no thank you, I don't want it yet.
And interesting here that Abram Milano is going to start with a disc wheel at the back, but that's one of those Campag ones. I think the actual disc itself is quite a lightweight job, isn't it, Stephen? It is.
It's very, very light. And it's, surprisingly enough, I've been to like the Banesto team there a few minutes ago, and I've been to Telecom, and I've been to the Once team, and they're very reluctant to give out information.
Yes.
Like it's like
I found the same when I went round. It's like hidden away.
It is. It's like Formula One. Like they're afraid. It's the money of giving it out on air. Like nobody will know. Honestly, nobody will know. But they, I went to Rudy Pevney. Just well, Rudy is. Are the boys going to be using a disc wheel? Are they going to be going to change the bikes on top of the hill? Maybe. With a big smile on his face. But I said maybe yes or maybe. It's maybe. So, but from looking at Reese and talking to some Danish reporters, Reese has in his mind to ride a normal bike from the start up to the top of the hill and then change onto this funny looking bike then for the final. But once again, the weather conditions I think will determine whether he will change or not.
Well, it's all up for grabs, and my predictions might go completely out the window. It's usually sure, but if I pick somebody to win, there's going to be a kiss of death anyway. In fact, I was talking to Doug Sollers on the phone last night. He was very much involved in the Falcon team over the years gone by when he was the sales manager there as well. And he's entered this dream team. And I think his wife's also entered too, because he said, I think if I got it right written down, his wife had picked her team based on the lovely legs of the riders. And it sounds like Chris Bortman's wife, Sully, and who picked the riders because she liked their names. So, and they're no doubt doing better than some of the experts. Well, there we are. Thank you for your comments, Doug Sollers, out there in Cheltenham, and I hope you enjoy.
Thank you very, 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 very much.
Doug will know as such. I just said it.
A joke between ourselves, Dave.
Yes.
And himself.
And let's see what happens at the end. By the way, if your wife beats you, Doug, you've got to take her out to Dins. There we go, with Alano underway now, the ex-world road champion, quite a useful time trialist too. And I was looking at some of the time trial results over recent years, and Alano... Go on, off you go then. You've got something to say?
No, just look at I have some time trial results here.
Oh, the one I was picking out here, you see, was one from Hui to Sarang when Rees hammered after Mr. Indurain and nearly cupped him on the line. And there's another one, I've just got it here, I'll dig it out for you.
But while you're looking there, I have one here which puts Rees down in the time trial in Val d'Isère in last year's Tour de France, 30.5 kilometres. Orlando lost 10 seconds to reach and was some 22 seconds ahead of Ulrich. In the time trial in Saint-Emilion last year, in last year's tour, 63 kilometres, Orlando finished 2 minutes and 6 seconds behind Ulrich and 1 minute ahead of Rees. So well, one thing which occurs to me here, Dave, so far in the Tour de France, Orlando has done nothing really extraordinary, but he still finds himself in third place overall. He's been hanging in there all the time. I think today he's going to do a good time. He knows that there's still one more time trial to come, but he also knows there is still Alpe d'Huez tomorrow, there's Courchevel after tomorrow, there's still some very steep hills to come, so he knows that the time he gains in the time trial is times he can not afford to lose, but he can give himself a little bit more rope in the mountains.
Yes, I'd look back to 95, to the Tour of Spain then, when Alana beat Brunel. Brunel's a very good time trialist over the distance, and he, in fact, was way ahead, 1 minute and 4 seconds ahead of Brunel. Murray was in second spot, and he won that one convincingly, which shows he can time trial when the occasion demands. And at the end of the Tour de France last year, the Bordeaux Saint-Emilion, 63.5 kilometre, Alano finishing in third spot there, 2 minutes and 6 seconds down on Ulrich, and just behind Indurain, who was second at 56 seconds. But he did beat Rees on that occasion, so Alano can time trial, but I think this hilly one is more to suit this fellow here, Varong, because I've got him down as being second, but he may do better than that. Keep your fingers crossed, all you French followers of the sport and those who want to see Mr. Now there's interesting. He's got the Festina name in his goggles. Here, that cameraman's just worked out. He rides a Festina. That's very
That's
clever.
actually the road in the front, Dave.
I know it's on the road in front. It is.
That's the ramp.
It's a reverse of the ramp.
Yeah.
It's an amazing shot, that, isn't
you
it?
can see it in the
Picked
glasses,
up the reflection of the ramp as he goes down now. Festina's got his name on there. They got it in his sun specs and picked it up for him. The road's drying out too, so, well, all your Veronica followers, it could be the time for him to challenge for the top honours, because he starts out this morning on the time trial stage, 2 minutes 38 seconds down on this man, Jan Ulrich, who so far has shown superb brilliance, in just marking all the moves 3 days ago in the Pyrenees and then taking over the lead. We're going across this tremendous bridge here. This is a remarkable piece of bridge. On the left-hand side, that is the Auberge de la Cascade, where you can have a delightful fish meal. I saw the menu myself, because just below that bridge where we went across, there is a sort of a dam, and there's plenty of water, and then obviously plenty of fish too, so you have your fresh fish at the Auberge de la Cascade. And this man, Casagrande, is now on his way round the course, and the last man, Jan Ulrich, is ready to go. Final ride of the time trial section. Casagrande for Psycho. Really, this team's had an up and down tour, hasn't it, really? When Gotti had to retire, the Psycho team, and also when Cipollini crashed and came off. But I think Casagrande has assumed the mantle of team leader quite well indeed, hasn't he?
He is, yes. And I just heard actually last night, in case people are still wondering, there's an awful lot of speculation going around about where Cipollini is going next year. And I heard on the QT there the other night that actually Cipollini has re-signed again with the Psycho team. So that'll keep it a lot of people happy, because there's an awful lot of controversy there whether he's going to go to Banestro or go to ride in France, maybe, for example, where he's finally signed now with the Psycho team.
Yes, I read that in fact in L'Equipe this morning, and also when I was wandering around the press room yesterday, I picked up, or was it this morning? I forget, this morning. I picked up a press release from the Rabobank people and said that Jan Raas has now signed Beitzeberg to join them for next year. He's riding with Mercato Nuno at the moment, and he's now going to have a 2-year contract with Jan Raas, and they look for him to strengthen their team anyway. So, of course, last year he won the Henniger Term and beat people like Hepner and Sorensen and Rees in the process, so they obviously have signed him to come into the team alongside Rolf Sorensen, and so on. Could make a nice little combination.
Well, there's also comment s'appelle l'Autrichien, the Austrian rider, Dave.
Toshnik? Luttenberger. Yes.
Luttenberger's already there. Luttenberger was already a teammate of Sberg and the Carrera team for a number of years, so I'm sure they're putting a lot of weight on the back of a lot of confidence into Luttenberger. So the fact that they're strengthening the team now, by bringing on the likes of Sberg, I think they're probably preparing themselves for another year or two to come to have a Tour de France team, or a team capable of doing well in Tour de France.
This is a moment now on the race of truth, the race against the watch, when here Jan Ulrich psyching himself up. He'd have been warming up on the rollers, and there he goes now. The sun is shining, and he's got his old Rudy Project sunglasses on, because he's got some sunshine ahead of him, and he's off now. Thank goodness the roads look like they're dried out, so I'm going to get an equal competition at the back end of the race. And let's hope further on up there in the mountain, he's got a 14-kilometre climb ahead of him, that in fact the miserable conditions will have blown away, and we've got a straight race between Ulrich, who is in the lead by 2 minutes and 38 seconds over Richard Verong, Olano in third spot, 4:46 back, and Bjorn Rees, his teammate, in fourth spot at 4:53. So a lot of personal battles going on out there. This man's got a delightful cushion of over 2.5 minutes back to Verong, but he can't let up for 1 minute. He must exert his authority today.
It is, but when I spoke to Walter Gutterford this morning, his director sportif, I said to him, what will be your kind of tactic today? So Walter said, well, I've just told him to ride a 55-kilometre time trial. Not to ride a time trial as if he's defending his lead on the Tour de France, or not. He's not riding the time trial in the Tour de France. He's riding a time trial, a 55-kilometre time trial, and not to put more pressure on himself, because people we've seen, top riders we've seen before, actually cracking under pressure. And Jan Ulrich, at 23 years of age, has not got the experience of the media and the public and everything else over the last few years, so he is still very inexperienced in this area. So Walter told him this morning to ride this time trial as if it's a 55-kilometre time trial, and not the Tour de France time trial, which may or may not help him win the Tour de France overall.
Ellie going through, still the leader, Frank van den Broek at that particular point, and you can see the spit, the gobbing, and what's going on to this man. He's absolutely riding himself into oblivion as well. These chaps throw everything in, and they finish in a big heap at the end of it all, and they know they've really gone and ridden as hard as they can do, and in this mountainous time trial, very undulating, very twisting, and we'll probably go most way round now with Bjorn Ries and together with Ulrich and maybe with Olano and Veronk with our cameras, so we'll be flicking backwards and forwards. I've been looking at the results last year when we had the climb up to Val d'Isère. The time trial at that time was straight up the mountain climb, a bit of a kink in the middle of it, then up it went again, and that was what just took 51 minutes 53 seconds for Berzin to win it. He beat Ries by 35 seconds, Olano by 45, Romming was 1 minute 1 second back, Indurain 1-1. Jan Ulrich was a minute and 7 seconds back on that mountain time trial last year. That was straight up the mountain and especially sort of climb, but nevertheless that 14-kilometre climb, Stephen, I thought it was a bit vicious.
Well, I think it is, but looking at a race here, Dave, he looks very comfortable, doesn't he? He doesn't look to be really in any way stressed, or you see him on the corners, he's going out in the right line, he's cutting them short, but doesn't seem to be in any kind of panic for the moment.
Well, he's a superb time trial. When we had the time trial from Gruyter Serang in 1995, Ries was fourth out at the 13-kilometre mark. By the time we got to the 22-kilometre mark on what was an undulating course, not as conky as this one, but just little short, sharp climbs in it, he was just 25 seconds down on Indurain. By the time we got to the 38-kilometre mark, he was 15 seconds down. At 49 kilometres, he was ahead, of Indurain by 5 seconds, and at the end, Indurain powered through to take the lead by just 12 seconds. So it just shows that Ries can gather momentum all the way through. He can ride an undulating course. He may not be the best at the steepest part, but he's certainly got ability on the rest of the course, hasn't he?
Well, in previous time trials, I'm just looking for a time.
That's Kevin Livingston, yeah.
Pontani is doing a very good time at the moment, up to the first 10-kilometre point. We haven't got it here on our screens here, but it's coming across.
He's 3 seconds down on Bourman.
Yeah, so that's a good time for Pontani. But going back to Boardman again, he's fallen here, Dave, has he maybe?
Coffey says he must have come off Livingston.
Yeah, he had a short turn as well. It's actually a very dangerous crossroad about 4 kilometres into the stage, where you go down into, like I was saying earlier on there, down into a hole in the road, and the bike gets light and sometimes flies, where we've had a number of riders have fallen off. Here we are here now, Dave. Something like that, yeah. So you can see them in the corner here. We've seen some riders earlier on going straight across into the barriers. Of course, we have Ulrich here. He will have time checks on Ries, who is in front of him. He'll have time checks also on the likes of Pontani, Virenque, and Escartina, the riders who are the most dangerous behind him on GC.
Well, we've just seen Livingston finish in 1 hour 27 minutes and 52 seconds. The time check at the 12.5 kilometre mark still shows Bourman the fastest there in 14 minutes and 46 seconds. But Chris faded later on during the race. I think the first part he found quite suitable to his styles. His back wasn't hurting too much, but it certainly began to give him some pain later on. He was caught for 2 minutes by Van den Broek, but at the moment is leading on your screen there, 1 hour 21 minutes and 8 seconds. As Dayo, the man who had a good go at getting the stage success the other day into Andorra, comes in. Quite a useful ride then for this lad who's a specific mountain climber as such. He's managed to survive. I felt that the course, he's 61 overall, but he's only up 4 minutes down on Van den Broek. I thought that to a large extent the mountain climbers wouldn't lose too much on the descent this time, because it was a very fast descent, which you'd have difficulty in going any faster than anybody else.
It is, Dave, but the climb itself is not a real kind of small gear climber's hill. It's the strongman's climb. So Dojo, or the likes of, I think, Virenque as well, they're strong riders, but the hill, in my opinion, is not steep enough for them to take time out of the likes of Ulrich or the likes of here we are now, Dave.
He's coming back with a bang, isn't he, Ries, then? So fastest, that was originally Chris Bourman's time, and Pantani have both been shoved down now by Bjorn Ries, and yet to come through Olano, Veronk and Ulrich to that time point.
But at least Pantani there is 14 seconds down, so at least he's holding his own in the first half of the race anyway, so...
This race is hotting up. The everybody's out on the course now. The top men are battering each other around this course. The time check's coming thick and fast, and Rees now has thrown down the gauntlet. Of course, the time check to be going back to Ulrich on the way round, as he will be now trying to, at least I think, close the gap on his young compatriot. But it's all up for grabs now. It's every man against the watch on his own, and this man Ulrich will be knowing time that's coming in, what Bjorn Rees is doing, what Veronk's going to do, Olano, etc. But it is in yellow. He is 2 minutes and 38 seconds up on the nearest place man Veronk. He hasn't got any opportunity to relax at all, but he's got to ride and ride and ride at the moment, and he's a good time trialist too. He won the last time trial in the Tour de France last year, but it was under different circumstances. As Jalabert comes in here, he'd already caught his 2-minute man way back on one of the climbs, so he's putting quite a respectable performance after the problems he had with his foot the other day.
It is, I think possibly the weather they've had today and the rest day they had yesterday has helped Jalabert kind of recharge his batteries, because the first week we had here in the Tour, if you remember, we had very, very hot temperatures, very warm and very dangerous riding as well. So I got the impression that Jalabert, from talking to him, he was a little bit drained mentally and physically. So I think the rest day yesterday and the change in weather today, the more fresh weather, has helped him to recover.
There are 18th place for Jalabert at the moment. Quite a comfortable performance for him. I think he'll be happy with that one. He could be on his way back.
Here's Orlando here now, Dave.
He looks comfortable, doesn't he?
Oh, he looks comfortable. Lovely kind of pedaling style, so he has, Dave. Perfectionist, in my opinion, now. It'll be interesting to see now if he changes his bike. They told me, well, his team director told me, we'll see. And his mechanic told me he doesn't intend changing the bike. So it'll be interesting to see now. He comes to the foot of the hill. Just in a few meters here, you may or may not see it, but you see a sign on the left-hand side normally, and it says Summit, 14 kilometers.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it? When I saw it, I thought, oh my goodness.
This part of the race here now, or the circuit now, is very important, because the road is going up, but it gets steeper as you go up. So it's important to really well negotiate this part of the climb, because if you go too hard now, 14 kilometers is a long, long way to go. But as well as that, the time trial does not stop at the top of the hill. It also goes along through a very undulating period for another 3 or 4 kilometers after the top. Then you've got a very fast descent with a headwind. So it's very important, this part of the circuit here, not to overdo it, not to go into the red, just to kind of get your feeling right, so you can dose your effort to get you to the top without actually cracking.
Well, still then at the 12.5 kilometre mark, Rees the fastest, Boorman second at 11 seconds, Fantani third at 14, and younger Eric Decker is behind them in fourth spot at 15 seconds. Cameron's in a useful ride behind them too in sixth spot at 18 seconds. Watching Olano here, I've just been checking back the books just to see what Van den Broek did recently. He won the Tour of Luxembourg by winning the 16-kilometre time trial on the fourth time trial, the fourth stage of the race. And Van den Broek was the second most successful rider last year. 14 victories he had. Cipollini had 16 victories, and Frank Van den Broek had 14 for the Mappé rider. Of course, they sheltered him from throwing him into Tour de France, haven't they? They've said all the time this Van den Broek is also the next Eddie Merckx, but he got enormous clash, and they sort of sheltered him and allowed him into the race this year. And really, to do that time trial performance, Stephen, is quite something, considering that you know, someone who's good talent here is having a job to beat it.
Well, he has. He has been doing.
Jimenez third.
Yeah. Rees, 6 seconds between Orlando and Rees at the moment, but didn't get it. There we are now. Orlando has actually gone faster than Rees, Dave, by 6 seconds at a 12-kilometre marker.
Well, there we are. That's the up on your screen confirmation that Olano has taken the lead at 12.5 kilometres, but yet to come through that time check is Richard Veronk and Jan Ulrich. Brilliant performance there, as the time check showed at 12.5 kilometres that Olano and Veronk were level pegging, 14 minutes and 29 seconds. Bjorn Rees back in third spot, 0.6 or 0.06 back, and Boorman 17 seconds in arrears, has now been pushed down to fourth. Pantani fifth at 20 seconds. Chris faded a bit towards the back end, not surprising with his problems that he's been having, but the battle is now raging between Olano, Veronk and Rees. We're yet to get the time check of Ulrich, who started 3 minutes after Veronk, so we've got to wait a little bit longer to see if he can leapfrog over the top of Olano and Veronk. One time which has just come here at the finish. Bogart, who won that stage into Aileban last year. I remember it well. That was the one where we had the trouble with the petrol and the diesel. Long will I ever remember that. Bogart's just come in, 1 hour, 21 minutes and 28 seconds, and he's moved into third spot behind Frank van der Broek, still the leader. 1 hour, 21 minutes and 8 seconds, and wedged between Bogart and Van der Broek is Jaskula. Stephen, just a word while I was watching the yellow jersey on here. Jaskula, a jolly useful ride there, because he had 2 years now without a success. It was way back in 1993 when he was third in the Tour de France, wasn't he? And he had quite a successful season in that 93. Had a number of successes. I think he won about half a dozen races. And then he sort of just drifted away, didn't he?
He did. We haven't seen him. That's why I was very surprised to see him even the other day when I was going down through the start sheet, because they haven't done anything. Ulrich has gone 7 seconds faster than Orlano.
There it is on our screen, you're right.
7 seconds faster.
14:22, the fastest time now at the first time check we've got, and that's on your screen there for you to see. That flashed up very quickly indeed, and that confirms what a battle's raging out there.
Well, it's very good, Dave, because Virenque has succeeded in doing a really, really good time for the first 12 kilometres, and those first 12 kilometres would not have been his best territory, so to speak. It's been very twisty and turny, so now he may not lose too much now on the climb. Then you've got a very fast kind of descent then, so I may be proved wrong here. I probably will be proved wrong, because I thought Virenque would have lost about 1.5 minutes here in the time trial to the likes of Ulrich or Orlano, but he's doing a very good time at the moment.
Well, the French will be keeping their fingers crossed, coming back into Saint-Etienne, the place that was the centre of the French cycle industry for many, many years. There were so many famous names had their establishments here, mainly making componentry. And at the moment, there's just 2 big names left as we look there at the confirmation of that point. Yet again, 12.5 kilometres of the course there. Cameron's in back in 8th spot. Used to ride there, O'Grady. I saw him warming up this morning on the rollers, one of the early starters. Nicely in 9th, but that would suit O'Grady, the first sort of 12 kilometres. When he was riding on the rollers, by the way, he'd got a set of headphones on, and he got a cassette tape machine on his handlebars, and he was listening to music riding to it. I do this on my exercise bike. I've also got one of these turbo trainer things as well, Stephen. I find it utterly boring to go on the rollers without something to listen to, and I like listening to music. And particularly I play some Irish jigs, some James Last music, and some is slow and some is fast. It's not singing. I can't stand people singing, but that sort of music makes it me either go fast or slow. Otherwise, utterly boring on the old rollers.
Well, we see a lot of the riders here in the start now, before time trials and before prologues. They all have a Walkman or whatever they have in their ears. But I think it's strictly because, like, the tour now is getting bigger and bigger. There's more and more people now at the starts and finishes of the prologues, not the time trials. So it means they have less privacy. Before, they used to always have a warm-up circuit, I used to call it, which is a circuit which is blocked off, a circuit of maybe 1 or 2 kilometres maybe in the centre of the town, where it would be strictly used for riders to warm up, to go round and round and round. Whereas now the town's becoming more and more getting smaller, some of them, and the tour becoming more and more bigger and bigger. It's difficult to find these circuits, so it means the riders have to kind of warm up on the spot. So they're using the rollers more to warm up as before. So they're getting bored with it, I think, now. So they're starting to use these Walkmans and all kinds of CDs and cassettes to pass the time.
And I can recommend it to anybody who likes to keep fit on the roll to just that. There we are. This is the overall classification as at the first point. They've just been shuffling it for you just to see if there are any changes on the general classification. It looks to be pretty well the same as we've got on the GC. Looking down there, Pantani 5. Yes, about the same. It's just that they'll be shuffling the few seconds. We're back now with Richard Virenque going up here, the housewise favourite as far as the French viewers are concerned. And talk about French viewers, the France de France 3, who are transmitting live programmes as well at the same time we're going out on air, said that in fact on the 14th of July 5 million spectators watched it, and then there was up to 7 million over the peak period. That was an average, that was 7 million at the peak period, about 2:30 in the afternoon. Phenomenal numbers, isn't it?
It's incredible. I'm looking here at Virenque. Virenque has number 11 here. That was my number when I won the Tour, Dave. But looking at his bike here, I was looking at it before the start here. It's not an actual time trialing kind of profile bike, and it's not a road bike either. He's kept the same triangle as he would have on his normal bike, but he's kept the tubes, the triangle smaller. and which gives him like as if he's having a smaller frame under. It gives him a very, very rigid frame, and then he has the special made up then kind of fins for handlebars. So for me, it was looking around different teams this morning. Some of the teams were going to change on top of the hill. I think that Ryan probably had a good choice of bikes here, because he chose a bike which is capable of getting him over the mountains and getting him down to the Sens, and which gave him the opportunity then of the choice of not changing bikes, which is a very good choice by Heinke.
And here he's also got that disc wheel at the back and his unusual handlebars. Actually, it's very handlebar manufacturer in Saint-Etienne. I was looking at some of the bars in the display they've got down here. No, I was looking at handlebars, not in the bars, at this big display that was manufactured locally and got. A lot of the industry's moved out now from Saint-Etienne, the cycle industry as such, but still Strong-Light make their cranks and chain sets here, and also Vitas are based here, the very famous company that were one of the first to go into making frames of aluminium and carbon fibre.
Just looking down at Bjorn's gears here, Dave, he's actually on his big chain ring, you can see here. I spoke to his mechanic before the start. He said he's got a 54 big chain ring and a 42 inner chain ring, and he has 11.21 on the back. So I reckon here he's on a 54 21 here, which is yeah, it's actually a biggish gear. So when you see the way he's getting it around, it doesn't surprise me. He's actually yeah, he's on his last sprocket there, or second last sprocket, which would probably be either 19 or 21. But you see him, he's out of the saddle here. It's a very rare sight here to see Bjorn staying out of the saddle for so long especially on a time trial and on a hill, because Bjorn rides very well in the saddle. But since the camera has taken Bjorn here on the hill, he hasn't sat in the saddle at least once, Dave.
And we've also had a jolly good shot of his back wheels. See how thin it is. The actual tyre and the disc itself are the same thickness, aren't they? Very, very shallow rim he's got there. Very, very shallow disc as well to reduce the wind resistance coming by from the bike. But he's out the saddle. I've not seen anybody ride so far out the saddle for so long, for an awful long time, eh? He's keep going.
That was my way of time trialing on the hills there, but it definitely wasn't Bjorn's way of time trialing before. So is that either been
talking to him?
Well, not me, no. But he's been getting some coaching or getting some kind of advice on the time trial, because I've never seen Bjorn riding with such commitment in a time trial.
Champion on his jersey. He's champion because he's the King of the Mountains. The Champion Supermarket Group sponsored the King of the Mountains competition. That's what the polka dot jersey shows. He is the best climber, and the Champion Supermarkets are the people that are sponsoring that section of the race. Hence the name. You can see it all over the side of the jersey. Actually, the name Champion or Champion, many of us know it with our spark plugs, but in fact Champion was a cyclist many years ago, and he immigrated to America. He rode quite a bit, mainly on the tracks as such, and then he founded the Champion Spark Plug Company. So Champion as a name still goes on in the Tour, but it's under the bonnets of the motor cars, and also here on the jersey of the King of the Mountains competition. One leading at the moment is Veron.
See the way the weather has changed here now. You have halfway up the hill you get the rain, so you see the difference between Orlano here and Bjorn behind. Bjorn was out of the saddle a lot, where you have Orlano here getting a good tempo, sitting down, just powering away.
Well, there we are now looking back at the yellow jersey, who was in the lead at the first time check today. After 12.5 kilometre time check, Ulrich was level pegging with Orlano. And Ulrich was in the lead. Orlano was at 7 seconds, level pegging with Veron, also at 7 seconds. Bjorn Ries in fourth spot there, 13 seconds down. Chris Borman still showing at fifth at that particular part of the course. Just behind Chris Borman was Pantani, who's no doubt looking for the next hilly part of the course. The next time check we'll get will be 26.5, where Vandenbroek went through in 45 minutes and 23 seconds. To be fastest at that point, heading Casagrande, Yascula, Jimenez and Pascual Rodriguez in that order. But the fast men are coming through now. I'll be looking at Vasseur here, puffing and panting, the man who wore the yellow jersey. Certainly, I think, Stephen, the whole of France will be happy to have seen him in that, but you can see it's knocked us stuffing at him. Only 50 minutes and in the 140th place. Or
well, he still has... he's only gone over the top of the hill there, David, I think, isn't he? He still has some 20-odd kilometres to go. He's lost over 5 minutes, so it's going to be a very difficult day for him today. You have to be very careful, I think, as well of the time elimination day, because I haven't looked it up to see what it will be. But if he's going to lose, if he lost 5 minutes in the first half of the race, he won't lose 5 minutes in the last half, but he's going to lose like 7 or 8 minutes overall on the day.
Well, he started this morning, did Vasseur, the previous yellow jersey, 7 minutes and 31 seconds down on Ulrich in 10 spots. So now he's going to drop further down, and we'll be lucky to stay inside the top 20.
Normally, a lot of people have said that Orlando here on your screen resembles Indurain in many ways. I think in one sense he does, in the fact that his look and his eyes are very like Miguel Indurain, but looking at him here in a time trial situation, like his style is totally different than Miguel. You see that the hump on his back here, it's a real like Jack Anquetil hump. Anquetil had a hump on his back when he used a time trial, and we find Orlando now has the same hump. It's just a natural hump. It's not something he's kind of worked on, it's a natural hump. But here we are back to Virenque again, and he's putting in a great time.
The other thing about Indurain was that he had that much more upright position, didn't he? His handlebars were much up more, because he could never get himself with a flat back, could he? When he tried the hour record attempt, they kept trying to flatten him and get him into a more aerodynamic position, but he couldn't stand it. He got this great chest, and he had to sort of sit there and suck in all this air, and of course present a much more upright face to the wind.
No, it's very true. Orlando looks very like Boardman in a time trial when he's actually in full flight. But this time trial here today is different to normal time trials because there's a lot of climbing on it. But Orlando, when he rides his low-profile bike on a flat time trial or on a prologue, he does have a very flat aerodynamic position. But look at the road here now, is getting wet. The likes of Virenque now, when he's out of the saddle riding on this, the fact that I'm having a very thin rear tire on his bike, on these very sharp corners, he could start slipping a little bit. But it'd be interesting to see now what Virenque is going to do as he gets over the top of the hill. He'll be getting time checks on the other riders. He will know where he is on the stage itself. Will he choose to change bikes, or will he decide to keep the bike? He has said he's going to keep the same bike, but have to just wait and see now what he does.
And the cut-off point, Stephen, I got the book out, and you said, was there a cut-off point? It is here that they say that it'll be 25% of the winner's time will be the cut-off point. So I think that one could survive that anyway, or I think Vasseur could do that. 25% of the winner's time gets added to it for the cut-off point in the time trial. Oscar Camazin, well, I think he rode himself into a standstill on the Tour of Switzerland. So many riders, once they see an opportunity of doing well in the preceding race to the Tour de France, will grab the opportunity where some of the riders were riding around just to get the miles in as such. I think this lad really rode himself into the ground, but he's a great talent, and we should see some more of him in the future. Back then to the yellow jersey of Ulrich, out down the road, last man to come along, gets all the time check. How valuable is that, Stephen? I mean, you've ridden in the yellow jersey in time trials, and to get the time checks coming back, is that really valuable? Or do you sometimes think, I'd rather ride my own race and just do it and ignore what they're saying?
No, when you're going for the overall on GC, you're better off having time checks, because it's not going to make it go very much faster, but it helps confirm the way you feel. For example, if you start off in a time trial and you're feeling bad, but your time is equal to some of the other riders, well then you Berger's done a very good time here, 1:21 in third, moving a step into third place behind Van der Broek on the time. But time checks are very important, because they're not automatically going to make you go any faster, but it'll comfort you in the sense that if you feel bad, for example, and your times are reasonably good compared to the other riders, you realise that you're not going that bad after all. Because if you hadn't got the time checks, you might feel, okay, this is not my day, I'm really, really bad, I'm stuck to the road, and get into a negative situation whereby you don't actually give it everything, because you say, well, I'm dead. But by having time checks, at least you know, even if you feel bad and you're getting a good time, you say, well, okay, well, the others must be as bad as myself. So it's very, very important at this level to have correct time checks on your opponents.
And still out the saddle. I don't know whether he could have ride then without a saddle all the way around. I've never seen Virenque stand out the saddle so much. He's normally powering his way up the climb, sitting down, but as you see, like Ulrich is doing, like Olano's doing, but Virenque's been bouncing around, going up towards the next time check at 26.5 kilometres. Van der Broek still the fastest there at 45.23. We had a very good time just a moment ago when Beetsenberg, who I said he's going to lead the Mercaton Uno team at the end of the year and join the Rabobank squad, in 1:21. 21.24, taking over the third spot from Michael Bogaert. So the order at the moment is Van den Broek still in the lead at the finish, 1 hour 21 minutes and 8 seconds. In second spot, Jaskula just 6 seconds behind, and Bogaert, who was originally in third, will now be pushed down by Zeberg, who had a time of 1:21.24.
We saw Virenka on the same part of the road here a few minutes ago, and he was out of the saddle using a big gear and pumping around very fast. You have Ulrich here now, a different style of rider altogether, using the kind of a triathlon position here, sitting far back on the saddle, the hands down on the tri-bars, using a reasonable gear, a very, very, very good and smooth pedal action. It'd be very interesting to see if we can get a look, Dave, if he's on his big chainring here or on a smaller chainring. A totally different position to Richard Virenka.
Well, Jufo going over that particular time check. So we've still got some time yet. In fact, Escartin, then Pantani. So Escartin and Pantani, two of the good climbers, should be the next ones to come up on our screen. If they've been able to do something on that climb, it'll give us some measurement as to whether they've done well. Because Van den Broek didn't show on the screens of the first 12.5 kilometres, but came good on the run up to the 26.5 kilometre mark.
Ulrich is really giving an incredible impression of strength, Dave. You see him there on that corner there. He didn't even get out of the saddle to relaunch his bike and to kind of kick it off out of the corner. He just sat in the saddle, kept his momentum up. He's on a small chainring there, as you can see, Dave, where Virenka was on the big chainring up here all the time. So it's very interesting to see now the time check at 26 kilometres, which is on top of this hill now. It's very interesting to see if he still holds his 7 seconds lead over Orlano or Virenka.
Also an interesting close-up of the head of the bicycle here. He's got a much bigger head on the bike than you normally get, because normally where the top tube meets the head tube, it's cut off very close to that, and the ball races are screwed into place and held down with the lock nuts as such. But now they're using these headsets, they call it. The column comes through, the steering column of the front forks comes up through the head column, and then the actual handlebar stem itself is locked in place on the fork column and holds the ball bearings down against the frame. But what they've done on this occasion is to elongate the head tube to give him a much more upright position for his handlebars at the front end of the bike.
Then.
What action we're seeing at the top of this climb. Pantani put his hand up there. It was planned that he should change his bike. We're looking back, recording we did whilst we had the ad, and now you can see Pantani changing over to his time trial bike after climbing up on an ordinary road bike. He's now going to take this time trial bike on, and it took him 15 seconds when he got off the bike to get back in rhythm, and he goes over the top there, beating Van den Broek time and taking the lead. But even more so, Bjorn Ries has come over the top of the climb and gone even faster. Bjorn Ries's time will be confirmed shortly, but it's 43 something. I'll wait for it to come up on the screen. It flashed up as we were coming back after our ad break, but Pantani is now being pushed back into second spot at 26.5. I'll just wait for the time to come up, and it's coming up in just a moment. All changes here.
I just we feel that here we are now. Ries. Dave, the time check we got was not at the...
Not the top, no, you're right.
Yeah.
We thought he got it. They flashed it up and flashed it down. They must have thought he was at the top with the captions, Stephen.
Yeah.
And obviously he has, but even so, it's going to be close.
It doesn't seem to me to be going that well, Dave. So that's why I was very surprised when I saw it there during the ad. He seems to me to be a little bit kind of sluggish. So I was very surprised to see the time, but it'll be interesting to see now. It's not yet, no, Dave, it's not going to be a great time, man.
But it says 44.57. They've stopped it again. We'll have to wait to see. They put these captions up, and I'm not sure if he's got to the top or not. Hang on out there, dear viewers. Don't run away and say rubbish and throw things at the telly. Apart from they cost a lot of money to get repaired. We know that Pantani at the 26.5 kilometre was fastest in 45.08. Van den Broek second by 15 seconds. Casagrande by 16. And when we think that it took, yes, here we are. They put it back up again on the screen now.
No, Dave, he's changing his bike here, Dave.
And that's about the same bike where Pantani made his change. They're getting ready. This is an unusual bike too, I think they're going to take now. There it is, that's the usual one with this sort of curved frame I told you about.
No, Dave, he's not good, Dave.
No.
Look at the face of him and the way he is. He's not good at all, Dave.
45.46 in fourth spot. Pantani still the fastest, 45.08. They both changed by. Look at that unusual bicycle now. But Rees doesn't seem to have got back in the action. Pantani leapt on his bike, didn't he? He was off down the road like a long dog, or a little long dog, because he's very tall.
He is. Like this is totally stupid. Look, it's okay, it may look well having the bottle behind the backside like that, but it's so long it took him to put it in there. I think he just hasn't got it today, Reece. He's not going for it at all. He hasn't got the legs that he thought he might have. It'll be interesting to see now what Vierank's time is, Dave.
And so still Pantani at that 26.5, his time 45.08. Vandenbroek second at 15 seconds. Casagrande third at 16 seconds. Rees fourth at 38 seconds.
It's coming across the radio, Dave, that Rees actually at 13 kilometres into the stage punctured and got a wheel change. So that might explain the fact that he was so far down. But even still, I still maintain the fact that there wasn't really an incredible kind of he wasn't that fresh when we saw him there getting off his bike a minute ago.
Vandenbroek's time still the best, 1 hour 21 minutes and 8 seconds. Ellie's coming here to cross the line in 1:22.59, putting him in 10th spot. The course today covering 55 kilometres. That's just a sniff, and Nats Whisker under 35 miles. 56 kilometres is 35 miles, and so you can imagine riding around this course in the 1 hour and 20 minutes for a 35 mile ride. Pretty good going. Yes, Stephen?
Dave, I think what we're looking at here is that Vieranek is still on the big chain ring here, but I just hope for himself that he hasn't just given it all in the first 12, 13 kilometres, because he looks to be suffering a little bit, David. He's not yet at the top.
Well, these riders are at 3 minute intervals, so quite a delay before we see Olano come through now. We've seen Rees go over the top, after Olano, Vieranek, then Ulrich, and we'll be able to get some understanding before they start the drop down towards Saint-Etienne. So who's going to win this time trial, or in fact who's going to cut back the deficit on Ulrich, or will he extend it on today's stage? The time trial stage, the race of truth, 55 hard kilometres. There's hardly a bit of flat, twists and turns, and it's a very, very difficult day indeed. Fortunately, the rain has begun to move away now. The roads are drying out as Olano ploughs his way up here.
It'll be interesting to see now if Olano is going to change his bike. We've seen Rees, we've seen Pantani. I believe Ulrich is going to change his bike as well. So it'll be interesting now if Olano decides to change his bike.
Well, Benesto, who also ride Pinarellos, they've been offered the same bikes. I know that they were taking them up to get them checked by the commissaires the other day, and if we look back, if we can see the mechanic getting ready to climb out and to get that bike off the top for Olano. 45.08 to beat. He's not going to do it. He's fourth at 45.39.
Yeah, Pantani isn't doing all that bad after all, Dave, is he?
What did you say to me when I predicted he'd be in the top three? I've got him down there as being, was it second or third? I think I've got Vieranek second, Brochard first, which is a long shot really. Brochard first, Vieranek second, and Pantani third was my prediction for today. And you told me off.
Well, I know. I must say I had a little bit of input into Pantani's performance, but in saying that, I never would have thought he would have been first over the hill in such a strong position. Like, I thought he would have finished up there okay, but never thought he would have been. I thought he would have been close to the leaders, the likes of Rees and Ulrich, but never thought he would have been so far ahead of them. You see, Vieranek here at this minute, he seems to be struggling a little bit, Dave. Earlier on, he gave an incredible impression of strength and smoothness, whereas now it doesn't seem to be as smooth, Dave.
But he's still out the saddle, whereas most other people have been sitting down, riding their way up there. He's determined. By the way, he's got these handlebars and so on. It isn't like you can sit back and ride like the other chaps have done. He's got himself an unusual position here, which means perhaps he has to climb out the saddle. Perhaps he has been trained to. Perhaps he has made that decision to rump all the way up out the saddle and use the gears this way. Eh?
Well, I think this is probably what it is, but looking at the way he was riding in the first few miles, we thought, well, maybe Richards might be riding a 10 kilometres or 15 kilometre time trial, but the time trial is 55 kilometres, so we'll be getting a time check here now at 26 kilometres, the same as Pantani or Olano, so it'll be interesting. I'd say he's doing a good time, looking at him the way he's been going since we picked up on our screen here earlier on, but it's very dangerous there. Look at the people there on the side of the road putting flags out, trying to get photographs, totally people have no respect, not what the respect they should have for the riders there.
I said earlier on as well, sorry about the picture breakup, by the way, because that's a particular part of the course where we now come back to Olano, where there's great big pine trees, and when the rain came down this morning, I could smell the pine. It was a beautiful smell, but the people just swarmed out. When I was driving my car around this morning, Stephen, they almost stood there and said, well, run us over, we won't get out the way. And I was down to less than a walking pace, and they would not get out the way, and they're standing the same thing with the riders coming in. If they stood back and allowed a nice 10-foot gap between, they'd still have the same view, wouldn't they?
They would, definitely. You see Orlano here, the way he's riding the bike here on the road here. The other riders have lost 15 seconds changing the bike on top, whereas if we can see them later on coming down the descent, they'll actually be more hindered than actually helped on those corners. But they're very fast corners, but they're still tight, so you have to be very, very careful.
Pantani's still in the lead because Verhonk's not going to make it. He's fourth in 45.30 at that time check. So Verhonk at the moment is fourth. What will Olano do when he comes up here? So Verhonk, who was a third at the first time check, has now dropped back to fourth at this particular point.
Well, Orlano Dave did 45.39, so he's Verhonk has done 9 seconds. 9 seconds faster than Orlano, and at 12 kilometers Orlano and Verhonk were on the same time, so Verhonk has actually climbed faster than Orlano. So again, to get to the finish, they're going to be very, very tight.
Bike change again, exactly as planned for Rees. Again, losing about 15 seconds on the change. He goes onto this unusual bike, a bit like sort of... is it the same one?
David.
The time, though, 43.90, 45.08.
And he's only just around the corner from the stopwatch.
And there he is, 43.24, and he changed his bike as well. He's in the lead by 1 minute and 44 seconds, and the bike he's changed to, Stephen, is an ordinary time trial bike, with a low profile as such, not the unusual one that Rees took. What a time he's just put up. This German is really intent upon smashing everybody out of sight and defending that yellow jersey the way he knows best, to attack the time, and he's now opened up another gap on his contenders. A brilliant ride by Ulrich to the top of the climb.
We saw a few minutes ago, we saw the change of bike for Ulrich. Very interesting here to see, Dave, that for the first 12 kilometers, Ulrich put 7 seconds into Verhonk. But then in the climb, the 14-kilometer climb up to the 26-kilometer mark, Ulrich put nearly 2 minutes into Verhonk. And Verhonk we thought was going very, very fast.
And there you are on your screen. That just shows you that Pantani in second spot, Van der Broek hanging on there. Casagrande, we haven't mentioned him, he's done a good ride too. But the battle between Verhonk, Olano and Rees, trying to wrestle time from Ulrich, is absolutely now almost a lost cause, because we're on the run down off the top. But it isn't downhill all the way, is it, Stephen? I remember it goes and it comes up a little bit more, and it twists and turns. It's just not up one side and down the other, is it?
No, it's very, 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 very tricky, all right. But there's a lesson here to be learned, Dave, for any of the young up-and-coming budding cyclists here watching us here. We saw Verhonk with a big gear. Okay, he was getting on top of it going on the hill. We saw Ulrich there with a very small gear. Whoa, we're getting very close there. We saw Ulrich there with a much smaller gear, pedaling his way up the hill. Like I always maintain that pedaling the gear on the hill, you always had a better chance of doing a good time rather than pushing a big gear. We saw Ulrich there pedaling more than Verhonk, visually apparent, and Ulrich put 2 minutes nearly into Verhonk going up that hill.
Jimenez coming in here. Frank Van der Broek's time still the best at 1 hour 21 minutes and 8 seconds. Jaskula 6 seconds behind in second spot. Zeberg third at 16 seconds. Bogard at 20 seconds is in fourth spot, and Brochard back into fifth. What's Jimenez going to do? It looks like he might topple Brochard, and he has. He's gone to fifth spot now, 1:21.43, and
it'll be interesting to see now, Dave, if Ulrich doesn't even catch Verhonk in the final 25 kilometers into the finish.
Well, they started at 3 minute intervals. Actually, Chris Bourne was caught by Frank Van den Broek for 2 minutes, but only just coming in toward the finishing straight anyway. And that just shows you the gap there between this man.
I'm sure that must be the first time that Chris Bourne was caught in a time trial.
I should think so. As he came out, I thought, well, it must be an awful long time since Chris has got caught. But there again, with his bad back, I think he did a very respectable time considering the condition that he has been in. And that is showing he's on his way back. Excuse the fun, but I think he's on his way back into fitness and health. And we wish him well, particularly in the final time trial. on?
Well, I think what my opinion, Chris should at the moment is going to ride along the moment and let the form come back, because he has a problem with his cervical vertebrae on the back, but they've been treated and he gets massaged and everything else. And of course, Chris's power comes from the waist down, not from the waist up. So I think that if he keeps it going the way it is, the experience of riding the Tour, the experience of riding the mountains, even if he's going to ride the mountains back in the Gruppetto or back on wherever it might be, it's still getting a Tour de France under his belt. That gives foundation for the Tours to come.
Well, Ulrich changed to this bicycle here, the standard diamond frame, but look at that thick down tube. It's a flattened, ovalised type, or in fact flattened triangular type of frame, but a very, very thin aluminium tube that runs down to give him plenty of strength where he's pounding away on those pedals, and also to smooth the flow of the air around the tube and back toward that back wheel with the disc on it, and his little triathlon handlebars where he can get down to low crouch position as and when we get some relatively flat or downhill stretches. Back then to change gear, and back he goes onto the triathlon position. His knees right close up against his elbows.
Oh, he's got an incredible position here on his bike there. He's giving out a really very strong impression of power and speed. Like, you wouldn't think he's riding a big gear there, but he actually is. But look how fast he's turning the legs.
Well, he's headed back in towards Saint-Etienne, where the time trial starts and finishes. And tomorrow we're going from Saint-Etienne to the Alpe d'Huez. The Saint-Etienne was on the initial stages of the Tour de France, which was in 6 stages. Lyon, they came down from Paris to Lyon, Saint-Etienne, Marseille, Toulouse, Bordeaux, Nantes, and back to Paris. So they have been coming here on and off for many years now. And in fact, when they came in 1903, they actually started at 3 o'clock in the morning out of Saint-Etienne on the next stage. So the time trial here, celebrating many, many times we've had the Tour de France in Saint-Etienne, and tomorrow we're going up to the Alpe d'Huez to the finish there. There'll be the 20th time to the Alpe d'Huez tomorrow. That's going to be an entirely different sort of race, going up that mountain top, which has been very much the benefit of the Dutch. They won there 8 times in the past, and it wasn't used until 1952 in fact, so Coppi got that one. But Stephen, I'm talking about the Alpe d'Huez tomorrow. After this time trial and the way they're riding these gears and these unusual bikes, and we go back into road section tomorrow and back up the Alpe d'Huez. Again, are the legs going to be feeling today's efforts?
Well, I think the efforts at the Pyrenees are still in the legs of the riders, because it's been a very, very hard. It's been a very, very hard Tour de France so far. We see Orlando here doesn't seem to be too fresh here. They have this small little climb here, but I think that in the next few days we will see the top of the general classification having a go at each other. We'll have the likes of Fiorank and Duffield, the Festinas going the same as they were in the Pyrenees. We'll see them having a go every time they can to get a chance, because I think at this rate of going, their second or third place on the general in the Paris is not guaranteed.
Sorry about the picture problems at the moment, but we're in the woods again, and the camera's having difficulty bouncing the signal up to the helicopter above the riders at the moment. But that is Ronk we're looking at. Must be a little bit upset, I suppose, with the work he's been putting in so far, to be still 2 minutes and 6 seconds down on Ulrich at the top of the 26.5 kilometre time check on the top of that mountain. Escartin at the 41 kilometre mark, 1:06:03. Just looking at that one, that's going to be a couple of minutes or a minute and a half slower than Casagrande, who's faster than Vandenbroek. So Casagrande, who we've not seen anything of so far, at the 41 kilometre mark, has now overtaken Vandenbroek, and all the riders you're looking at now are coming in behind those 2 riders. So just a quick recap on the performance at the 26.5 kilometre. Everybody's over the top of the climb now. Ulrich was the fastest in 43 minutes and 24 seconds. Pantani second at 1 minute and 44 seconds. Third, Vandenbroek at 1 minute 59 seconds. Fourth, Casagrande at 2 minutes, and fifth, Veronk at 2 minutes and 6 seconds. And Rees was out the frame there further down. I haven't got his exact position, but he's finding life a bit tough out there on this hard day's ride round the time trial. With Pasqualino coming in, Vandenbroek's time is still there, but Casagrande could well be the first one to topple that. Looking down the list, Vandenbroek well, he started, I'm going right at the back, in fact, was 86th starter this morning at just 12:52. He started just for 1 o'clock, did Van den Broek. The conditions were somewhat better. There was no rain anywhere around the course, but nevertheless, at the moment then, the Pantani here at the third point, going fast in Casagrande. Van den Broek being pushed back by 45 seconds. He's dropping off the top of that mountain like a proverbial stone is Pantani, as we watch Albert Milano.
Well, Orlando for the moment is behind Pantani, but Pantani is doing a great ride. He might even finish second behind Ulrich here on the stage there, which has been an incredible performance for Pantani. We saw him early on in the year when he was making his comeback after some horrific accidents he had last year. We saw him doing well in time trials, better than he ever did before, but I never would have thought to see him like second place or third place overall in a time trial here in the Tour. But this man here, Virenque, needs Pantani in the mountains if he wants to try and guarantee himself a place on the podium, because behind these guys on GC you have the likes of Rees and the likes of Orlando, who are ready to kind of pounce on them, and who will also lose time to Orlando and to Rees in the final time trial in Paris. So until Virenque puts 3 or 4 minutes, even 4 or 5 minutes into Rees or Orlando, his second or third place on the podium in Paris is not guaranteed. So Pantani is going to need Virenque, and Virenque is going to need Pantani to stir everything up a little bit in the stages to come.
It sounds, Stephen Roche, sir, like you and I, we've already been discussing this in the ad break, like we're looking who's going to be second and third, not who's going to be first, because we've been watching this lad Ulrich go along in the same way as the past, until last year, the previous 5 years. We just say, right, Indurain's going to win, who's going to be second and third? The way that Ulrich took off in the Pyrenees, first day in the Pyrenees, he just rode a relaxed way because he wasn't allowed to go away. He just looked after Bjorn Rees, but Bjorn Rees said next day, off you go. He not only go away and take that stage victory up at Andorra, but on this time trial now, he's just blowing everybody out of sight, a la Indurain, isn't he, eh?
He is, yeah. We see Ulrich is going to catch Virenque here. There's less than 30 seconds now separating Ulrich and Virenque. So Ulrich will have taken 2 minutes 30 seconds on 35 kilometers.
And Carsten Miguels, he's the new German commentator alongside me. He just touched me on the shoulder and he's smiling away here. And Rudi Altig's doing his little chat because there's never been a German winner of the Tour de France. It had lots of yellow jerseys. Rudi got it, 16 times, and I think Turo got it, 17 or 18 times. And we've had Klaus-Peter Thaler. I'll get their names out of the bag in a moment. They had lots of yellow jerseys, but they never had the yellow jersey all the way into Paris. But this moment here, they begin to look quite happy about it. And Rudi's promised that if Ulrich gets to Paris in the yellow jersey, he's going to turn up again like he did the other day in his yellow shirt with his yellow pants and his yellow shirt. I think I'll lend you my yellow underpants as well, because he had white ones on last time. Casagrande, we thought he'd go and take first spot over Van den Broek. If he keeps it up, down and finishing straight, he's certainly going to do it. A new leader in the time trial. A good ride then by the Seiko rider. He comes across the line in 1:20.20 and takes the lead.
Very good ride by Casagrande because he rode a very good Tour of Italy a few weeks ago, and people thought, well, okay, we found a new Italian hope, but Italy is Italy, and there's always a little bit of doubt as to what a rider like that can do in the Tour de France. So he's obviously gotten things right, putting in a great time like that, but there's the big boys, the big guns still have to fire. So you see the 41 kilometers to go here, 41 kilometers into the stage here, we have 1-4. We have Rees the exact same time as Pantani. So Rees is coming back.
Come back on the descent, because he's a bigger bloke, isn't he? So presumably his power on the descent is catching back. I thought there was a bigger gap than that at the top of the climb.
There was, yeah, the top of the climb.
We'll wait to confirmation on that one, because in fact at that climb Rees was nowhere near Pantani. Pantani's time at the top there, it must be
40 odd seconds.
No, I don't think that's right. They've got it down here as 1:04.09 that Pantani and Rees are equal, but that's strange. So Ulrich, last man on the course going round now. I'm sure that Rees must have been about
30 odd seconds down there.
At least 30 odd seconds down on Pantani at the top of that climb. And Pantani's a nutcase in descending. I hope Pantani hasn't fallen off.
I wouldn't say fallen off, but it sounds a bit much for Rees to take back. But the times are there, and we'll have to just look at it more carefully on our next time check. Orlando, as you can see here, he seems very committed, but doesn't seem to have the same power as Ulrich, as we've seen earlier on here. He doesn't seem to be, normally this is Orlando's speciality. He's very, very good at the time trials, but I think on this time trial he's not actually getting it together.
No, he's been very, well, he hasn't, to me, had a particularly good season. He had that crash in the midi-libre, wasn't it, when he was in the lead with, was it bolts on for the final day or penultimate day, and he came down, and it does seem to knock the stuffing out of him. He was looking good, coming on form, and throughout this race, Orlando's never seemed strong enough to stay with the best, because we saw him the other day when he had to have his teammates come back and drag him back up the hill, and he didn't look comfy, did he?
No, he hasn't looked comfortable at all since then, and maybe kind of put him off on his in his preparation. But I had backed Orlando here to finish in the first three. He still can, but I thought personally he would have been more of a threat to the likes of Rees than he is at the moment, because in the mountains and the Pyrenees so far he's been there but very discreet. He's been hiding a lot, so I would have thought he would have been more to the fore. Here we are, Dave.
So they still put up that time as being that Rees is equal to Pantani. We'll have to take that as being genuine, because they're the people with the watches. We're just watching what comes up on our little computer here and over on our headphones from the race radio. If Ulrich keeps this up, there's no reason that he shouldn't do, despite the attempts of others to dislodge him. Going into Saint-Etienne, this is the 21st time a stage has finished in Saint-Etienne, and there's not yet been a German victor here, so he could get it. The first man to win in Saint-Etienne was in 1950, because when the Tour came here in the way back in 1903 and the following year 1904, it was just a checkpoint on the way through. They'd started in Lyon, and I think they were going down to Marseille at the time, and they merely came through and had themselves checked. But this German rider now can certainly put his name in the record books by joining people like Geminiani, Bobbe, Ockers, Bracker, Godefroot, who was his team manager, won a stage here in 1971. Hino, Sean Kelly's won a stage here as well. And of course, the last time it came in 1995, it was the British rider Max Chiandri who won that stage that time. But this time it's going certainly to the man in yellow, who's powering his way around this course with a sheer demonstration of absolute out-and-out superiority when riding against the watch.
I was wondering what the noise was down below us, David. The fans of Cedric Vasseur just encouraging him across the line there. Vasseur's time, 1 hour, 27 minutes, 23 seconds.
Well, that's 7 minutes slower than the fastest we've got at the moment, 7 minutes and 3 seconds slower than Casagrande's time, who's taken the lead, just 48 seconds ahead of Van den Broek. Back in third spot, Jaskula at 44 seconds. Berg is then in fourth, 1 minute and 4 seconds back, and Bogart's still in fifth spot at 1 minute and 5 seconds. But all will change when this lot come in, the powerhouse of the Tour de France, starting at the back end, and they'll certainly change the situation, and particularly this man is going to dominate it and take himself yet another stage victory in the Tour de France, to go with the one he had the other day into Andorra, and of course the time trial victory he had last year in the Tour when he shot everybody with that great performance at Saint-Emilion.
We see Ulrich there, Dave. He closed up very, very quickly onto Bianca, but it doesn't seem to be catching him now. Whether he's just settling, which I wouldn't think, whether he's settling just to finish behind him and let him roll in, or whether he's actually, Bianca's pulling away from him or holding his own, we don't know.
Oscar Kammer's in 11th at the moment, 1:22.39, a name to watch out for, I'm certain, in the future, and still back out there with Ulrich heading in towards Saint-Etienne.
We can see behind there, Dave, a little white spot we can see in front there. Yeah. That's behind there.
I mentioned that this is a place where they make the Vitas frames, and they make handlebars, and of course the Strong Light Peel are based here as well, but also Eurobell, the Bell helmet people, are also based here in Saint-Etienne, and so many people back in the UK will be wearing crash hats that we made in this delightful little town.
Actually, it's strange to see, Dave, as well, that all of the favourite riders here, the top riders, are wearing either a small hat like this or no hat at all. Normally in a time trial like this, you would always have the top riders wearing the special profile helmets for the specially made for time trials. So it's very strange to see none of them here wearing the special hats.
Do you think that's because of the climb, that 14-kilometre climb, Stephen, that you'll be sitting up different position, that peak comes right down your back? And I don't think there's a hell of a lot of difference between this sort of hat he's got on and, I mean, the profile one does help to an extent, but if you're not looking and moving and changing and jumping around like and twisting and turning, that great big peak down your back might be a bit of an encumbrance.
Well, it's also, I think, a technical choice in the sense that a specialised time trial hat really only helps you when you go over a certain speed. Where with today's stage being very mountainous and very hilly, you know, it really only help you maybe in the final few kilometres, but it might hinder you then going up the hill, because it also makes your head feel like a pressure cooker, so to speak, makes you feel warm. So it really only comes into account when you're actually going over a certain speed, 47 or 48 kilometres an hour, I think it is. So they probably decided, well, it's not worth it today.
Here he comes, Man Mountain himself. The commissaire is telling our camera to go on, get out of the way, because Ulrich here has now got Veronk very clearly in his sights, and he's going to catch him any time now. As he swings past us now, you can see just down the road, there's the sights of any time trials back in Great Britain recognised. That's catching a minute, in this case catching him for 3 minutes, and that is Veronk, who's second overall on classification at the moment, 2 minutes and 38 seconds down this morning. He's now going to be at least 5 minutes and 38 seconds down when Ulrich catches him. So suddenly the Tour de France now has been blown wide open in the respect of who's going to take the yellow jersey, barring accidents through to Paris. Anything can happen, you never know. Ulrich might blow tomorrow on the climb up into the Ventoux, and Veronk might get his own back, but certainly it's a battle for second, third and fourth and so on. The way this man is riding, he's going to get the man who's flying second at the moment, Richard Veronk, and pump another 3 minutes into him.
Behind, I'm sure, is trying to withstand the return of Ulrich here, but at the same time, look at the power and the strength of Ulrich there, and the speed is coming up onto behind Kill.
Well, when
effortless there.
This tour is not over by any means yet, but when it started, lots of people were saying who's going to win, and I said that Veronk certainly had got a good opportunity. It was a mountainous event. It got a very tough time trial here, and we thought that it needed somebody who could really go some to topple a specialist climber like Veronk, and that man happens to be Ulrich now, because Ulrich is a man on his own, in a class of his own, and the rest now fighting for second place in the Tour de France. If he keeps this up to the end, mind you, he's only got 23, isn't he, Ulrich, Stephen? He's got a lot of hard work ahead of him in this race. A long way into Paris. He showed it last year when he finished second overall. He could stand the 3 weeks of the Tour de France, and right now he's riding like he's in a different race.
He is. We saw this with Indurain over a number of years. He dominated the event. I just hope now that Ulrich's not going to dominate it to the same level, because if you remember, like the last 2 or 3 years, it's been a little bit monotonous with the likes of Indurain doing the same thing, the race being over before they even got to the second half of the tour. So you know, but it'll depend a lot on the attitude of the riders, if they're going to settle for second place, or if they're going to have a go and hope that someday Ulrich, being young, might actually weaken someday.
Casagrande then still our best placed rider, 1 hour 20 minutes and 20 seconds, as Laurent Duffield comes in 13th spot at the moment, but a lot of good top men still out there ready to come in and push them further down the finishing list. So Casagrande having his moment of glory at the moment, Van den Broek still in second spot, Jaskula third, but the way this lot are coming, I think Casagrande will find himself back into about 5th or 6th spot. Escartin coming in, a good specialist climber as such, but the course today not exactly to his like. He's not the world's greatest time trialist. He started out this morning in 6th spot at 5 minutes and 46 seconds down. Duffield just finished, who was 3 minutes out from him. Escartin comes in now. Quite a tasty ride. He must have gone reasonably quick towards the end. He had a bit of a slow start to it, but Escartin finishing in 21:47.
A very good time for a rider like Escartin.
He came back towards the end.
He did, yeah. I get the impression here that some riders have taken off very fast and maybe paid their efforts in the final, because some of the riders are coming very, very strong. Look at that behind here. He seems to be flat out, and Ulrich is riding away from him. The question now is, well, okay, we're not saying that the race is over, but there's going to be a fierce battle on now for second and third place overall, because you have Pontonnet, who's done a great time, and also Bianca's done a very good time also. Reese has not done the time that he was hoping to do. So the race behind Ulrich is wide open. And then, like I say, I keep saying, and I will keep saying until we get to Paris, the Tour de France is very, very difficult, especially this year, where Ulrich and everybody else, they're never out of the storm.
And he's storming in to finish here. Pantani, who set a tremendous time up to the top of the climb to be just 1:44 behind Ulrich, the only man who looked good at the time, and then suddenly got swamped by Ulrich, but certainly the fastest of the also rounds. He's now coming in. Can he get the victory? Can he get the best time so far? He has. 1:20.06 for Pantani. Everybody here is elated with this character. The Pirate has done a great ride. And the next question is, though, we saw an equal time check for Reese out there. One of the time checks at 41 kilometres. They gave same time for Pantani and Reese. Ulrich has gone through that particular time check 2 minutes 38 seconds faster than Pantani and Reese.
Well, he's in a race of his own, I think, Dave.
Isn't he totally?
Just looking at my thing at 2:30. Pantani will be about 3 minutes behind on GC. So, but then you have Reese and Orlano. So I can see an incredible fight there between Pantani and Bianca in the mountains, Dave.
Well, unfortunately, I think Pantani, you're just talking to see who's going to try and battle for second place, are you, rather than not about the King of the Mountains. He hasn't got himself enough points really at the moment, has he, Pantani? I don't think to challenge for that. But
no, he has not, Dave, but we see the speed of Ulrich there coming down the descent there. He's being a little bit taken over to the far side of the road. These corners are very long and very sweeping corners, so it's very difficult to negotiate with a bike like this.
We're looking at the last man on the road, who's first overall, and he's making himself even more and more dominant at the top of the general classification and the race for that yellow jersey. He's just showing superb skill and ability all the way around this time trial course to take the mountain in his stride. And now on the descent, it's a very smooth descent, it's a very fast descent, this one. He'll be pushing his gear. There he goes past the time check at that particular point, and he's now on his way down. It's a really good run down, isn't it, actually, Stephen? You chops and changes a bit through the streets as they come in ahead. Reese now, 1:19.02, might topple Pantani's time. It looks like he can do. He's ridden off the top of that mountain like a man possessed. So Pantani's not all over yet. Mr. Reese is breathing down your neck. It looks like he pushed Pantani down to the second spot. The Danish here in the audience, you can hear them and the banging and the clapping going on, because around the course today I've never seen so many Danish flags. There's nobody left in Denmark, I think, to look after the pigs for the bacon in England, nor to tend to the jobs up there. They're all down here glued to television sets or what have you. To see how Reese has done, I can tell you he's now gone into lead, 1:19.32 on this time trial stage. He must have come off the top of that mountain like a proverbial dose of salt.
Yeah, he's taken 34 seconds from Pantani, but in the final 20 kilometers. So the fabulous descent by Reese. But when you see the size of Reese to the size of Pantani, and the weight of Reese to the weight of Pantani, it is possibly normal, because it was a very, very fast descent down to the finish. But fair play to Pantani all the same, Dave. Did an incredible ride. Nobody would have thought he'd have done such a good ride today.
I did. I put him down on the GC as 23rd today. Oh dear, 5th at the moment. Oh gosh, look at Lallano's coming fast, you see. So these bigger chaps, Lallano, Veronk and Reese and Ulrich, are all coming quicker off the top of the mountain, aren't they, from Pantani?
They are, but look at it, Bianca even. Bianca now is 3:09 and Pantani is 3:24. So Bianca must have come down the mountain very fast as well.
Yeah, so that...
Well, actually, possibly Bianca is making the most of the fact that Ulrich caught him, and he has him in his sights. Maybe it's helped him accelerate a little bit.
So he's certainly got something to chase, has Veronk down here. He caught him for 3 minutes, and he's now just setting his sights on this man here, who's got a clear road ahead of him. And
it reminds me, Dave, of a stage of the Tour de France back in 92, 93, when we had a Miguel Indurain dominating a time trial out in the motorway, I forget actually where it was, down the east of France somewhere, and everyone was kind of expecting the time of the finish to be something like a minute between him and a minute between somebody else, and Indurain came in and the second man was 3 minutes down, whereas now you have Ulrich doing the very same thing and putting the second place man down possibly down some 2 minutes, 2.5 minutes.
Well, I'll never forget that one. This is the big one, the 9th stage in 92, Luxembourg, in the 65-kilometre when he did the sort of record average speed. Indurain was 3 minutes clear de Las Cuevas, then like Buño 3:41, Yascula 3:47, Roche here 7th, 4 minutes and 10 down on Indurain. This is exactly the same thing between the riders here. Let's go down to 10th spot. There was only about a couple of minutes, but here there's only a minute between yourself, de Las Cuevas, Buño, Yascula, Lino. There's nothing there, and then suddenly you've got 3 minutes. There was Indurain doing exactly what Ulrich doing today, coming in so far ahead. There's a race going on for second and third and fourth places. Lano's come fast off the mountain too, though. Reese's time can be beaten back here. So we've seen some tremendous descending done by these riders. The climb was one thing, coming down something else, and Olano now trying to get that first spot off Bjorn Rees. Will he do it? 1-2 seconds to go, and no, he's just going to be a sniff outside. Olano, though, has done a good ride off the top of the mountains, but he'd almost given him up for lost on the climb. But there is 1:19.38.
These big men have obviously come down that hill very, very fast, David. You see Ulrich here in the final 2 kilometres. It's very twisty here as well. I'm quite happy now that the rain has held off, because when I came in this part of the circuit earlier on, it was raining and very, very wet. And I just trying to imagine the likes of these top boys coming in here, fighting for seconds and taking all kinds of risks on the corner. So I'm kind of delighted to see that the road is dry here.
Fastest time we got so far then, that of Bjorn Rees, 1 hour, 19 minutes and 32 seconds. In second spot now is Abraham Olano. He's just 6 seconds in second spot. In third spot, still Pantani, 34 seconds, as Veronk tries to fight his way back to Ulrich on the run-in toward the finish here. And certainly Rees, Olano and Pantani were watching with bated breath. We've no doubt about it who's going to take the victory today. It's the man in the yellow jersey, Ulrich. But here... 3 minutes down for Veronk this morning. Sorry, 3 minutes in front of Ulrich, and now he's still holding that gap.
Well, the fact that Ulrich caught behind has obviously helped him, because Pantani was way ahead of behind on top of the climb. So behind can thank Ulrich for his good time here today.
1 kilometre to go in the distance there for the yellow jersey. It goes under that Coca-Cola blow-up banner, and then just about 1 minute and 10-15 seconds, goes a street down, turn sharp right and up the finishing straight. The whole of France will erupt, by the way, I think too, because Veronk has done quite a useful time trial. If we took Ulrich out of the equation, this is with the rest of these people, Olano, Veronk, Pantani, Rees have all ridden with Casagrande and Van der Broek, superbly closely matched time trial, but this man is head and shoulders above the rest of them.
Yes, he is, definitely. This is something like the real Indurain performance, as we were saying earlier on. Look at the crowds that have turned out here today in Saint-Etienne. Possibly the biggest crowd we've seen in a finish so far since the start of the tour back in Rouen 10 days ago.
And I've never seen so many Danes out around this race. They'll be quite happy, I think, that a man from the same team's got it. They'd like Greece to do better still, but look at all the Danish flag in the background, the red and white ones there. Oh, dear me, as Veronk starts to hammer out the saddle, we know who's going to win it at 1:16. Look at that. He's clearly head and shoulders above everybody else, but what will happen to Veronk's time? Where will he finish on the result list today? As 1:16.24, and that's it. It's a tremendous victory, and so I should think that it must be around about 1:19.30 for Veronk. He's certainly beaten Olano, I think, and he may have beaten Rees as well, so Veronk may be second. After all, if I sums it quickly, I think Veronk is going to be second in the time trial, so you're seeing first and second on your screen, subject to official confirmation, but this man has pushed the second place man back by some 3 minutes with a performance right out of the top draw. Yes, it's been confirmed now that the time for Ulrich, 1 hour, 16 minutes and 24 seconds, the victor. Veronk is in second place at 3 minutes and 4 seconds. Bjorn Rees is third at 3 minutes and 8 seconds. Olano fourth, 3:14. Pantani fifth at 3:42. Saint-Etienne has seen some tremendous sights in the Tour de France. I say in the early days, in the first Tour de France in 1903, it was used as a checkpoint when they came from Lyon to Marseille, as they started out at the around about midnight and came through here at about 3 o'clock in the morning. Well, the people have turned out today to see what has been an interesting competition under very mixed weather conditions, but Ulrich convincingly taking the victory, 1 hour 16:24, and look down that list behind him. Decimation, but how close they were. There's only a minute or so between the next 4 riders on the general classification, sorry, on the result today, and that'll be fed in to see where the general classification is at the moment, and the gaps are opening up. I don't think it'll make any major change. We'll have to wait and see on there. The Classement General, Ulrich ahead of Veronk, Olano, Rees, Pantani, Escartin. Casagrandi's moved up, by the way. There's just one change there. Casagrande has moved up from 9th place at the moment into 7th. That was a very good performance by the Italian from the Psycho team, and look, he's only just some 7 seconds down behind Escartin. I think Escartin's going to have to watch out for the Psycho team as we move on tomorrow into the stage to the Alpe d'Huez. But the question is, Stephen, when they go into that mountain stage tomorrow, we've seen these lads battling it around today, what are the legs going to be like? Oh, he's listening to something else. He's got coming on his head.
Actually, what they're saying actually is that Vihank has opened a cut on his knee. In the final kilometres, he was out of the saddle, kind of sprinting, and his chain slipped and went down. He hit his leg off that very kind of funny handlebars he had, and cut a little kind of a
piece out of his knee.
Yeah. So I'm sorry for the
listeners. Well, let's see. Yes, but just there, his knee. Look, see how scarred. The right-hand side of your screen as it comes up. There it is.
Yeah.
Nasty, very nasty knock. Let's hope that doesn't affect him for tomorrow on the climb of the Alpe d'Huez, because that's an entirely different job tomorrow, isn't it?
Oh, tomorrow is definitely totally different, all right, yeah. So Dave, what were you saying? What's your question there again?
You're going on from here from Saint-Etienne to Alpe d'Huez tomorrow after a time trial stage. Do you think they're going to ride piano to begin with and throw it all into that final climb up the Alpe d'Huez?
Well, tomorrow there's some lads who've been resting up yesterday and had kind of semi-rest day today. They're going to be having a go tomorrow, because from Saint-Etienne we go over the Col de la Republique, which is not very difficult. It's very wide open road. Then you have a lot of very downhill road, and with very, very few hills right to the foot of Alpe d'Huez. So I'd say tomorrow we're going to see a stage where there'll be some of the back markers will be having a go once we get down into the valley after Col de la Republique. And then of course the big guns, they'll be all firing down on Alpe d'Huez.
And the general classification you've just seen will certainly, as we go back with some recorded highlights from the start this morning, also early this afternoon, with Ulrich getting himself ready for that tremendous time trial. Who would have forecast that he'd have won by so much after his great rides in the Pyrenees too? The first time we went up into Luchon, he rode a very controlled race on behalf of Bjorn Rees. The second day, he really let fly and showed everybody what a superb rider he was by finishing up that big climb. So he can prove even tomorrow, I think he can stay with the best of them. He isn't going to give in that easy, is he?
Oh, he is not. But we saw the devil there on the right-hand side of the road. I'm sure he'll be very happy, because it's about 15 years now he's following the Tour de France, and now he has finally got the opportunity of encouraging one of his own, because the devil himself, this devil anyway, is a German person. But I think tomorrow in the final we're going to see a big match between the likes of Vihank and Pantani, because if they want to get up to the second and third place on overall general classification, you got to blow out Rees first of all. So they don't attack tomorrow, and the day after at the Courchevel, Rees is going to snap up the second place on the podium in Paris.
Well, that's the battle we'll be looking forward to seeing then, as to who's going to finish second and third in the days to come. Ulrich is looking so strong at the moment that there's no doubt about it. He can dominate this race. He's got the strongest team too as well. They've not let very much go. And you see here, as we have a look back at him going past Veronk, today he took no prisoners. He just stormed round this course. He didn't in any way ease back. He must have known with the time checks he was going to win by a hatful, but he never ever eased back, just not at all. And he just dominated the race, and he's moved into a position now which looks unassailable. But you can never know. Stephen. I know it was not the same sort of distance in time, but remember my producer at Eurosport when we were back there in London, when we actually did it from London the very first year of 1989 that Eurosport covered the Tour de France, and Annette van Denker was the producer then, and she said to me, David, it's never over until they actually get to Paris. And that was the year that Le Mans knocked out that time and won by 8 seconds from Fignon sitting next to us here. The gap now is so great as far as Ulrich is concerned, but nevertheless they've got to watch out, because there's a load of good blokes here who still would, if they catch him napping and the team tactics don't work good, 3, 4, 5, 6 minutes in 2 lots of mountain state is possible, isn't it?
Once in 1983 I lost 22 minutes on Alpe d'Huez itself, so the Tour de France still has to go over the Alps, plus the mountains in Switzerland, the Romandy, plus the final time trial in Paris, so it's a long way from being over yet, even though we have a tendency maybe to go straight to say, well, Virenque and Pontani and Riese are going for second place. It is very true, but Ulrich will never sleep at ease when he gets to Paris, that's for sure.
And this is one of the men he's got to watch out for tomorrow on the Alpe d'Huez. It's tailor-made for something like Pantani, that climb, 21 hairpin bends as they go up toward the top of the thumping big climb at the back end of the course tomorrow. We're hoping to see the presentation on the podium at the end of this stage here in Saint-Etienne, the great centre for cycling over many, many years. Now, in fact, what I'll tell you, I have looked in the centre of the town, they're looking after bikes more and more. There's one town that's suddenly laid down special bike tracks, and I don't think we're going to see it on our camera, but there's 12 kilometres of tram tracks here as well, and the tram tracks go along what looks like grass. They've laid grass on the other side of the tram tracks where it's in the centre of the road. Alongside the grassy there is also about a metre and a half of cycle tracks, so they're looking for new forms of transport in Saint-Etienne, going back to trams, providing facilities for bicycles, and the cars were on another part of the road which had got sleeping policemen on them, so you couldn't bounce along. So Saint-Etienne is catering for cyclists, and this then is the 21st time we've been here to Saint-Etienne, and it has been dominated, and the German's name goes on the list for the first time, 21st time to be precise. Last year it was Chandler, the British rider, who won in a sprint coming up the straight now, but this time trial has gone to Jan Ulrich of the Telecom team. The young German rider will take the stage victory and will keep that yellow jersey, convincingly moving way ahead of his nearest rivals.
You can see now here Ulrich is not as free or not as relaxed as he was the other day. The time trial he did there today, the time he put into his rivals, I think he really dug into his reserves to do it. But of course he's shown in the past his great means of recuperation. He recuperates very, very quickly, so I'm sure now we're looking forward to getting back to his hotel and getting a good massage in preparation for the very hard stage ahead of him tomorrow.
Well, certainly when they did the checks at the university, they found that he had all the same characteristics as Miguel Indurain in terms of his ability with his lungs, his heart to pump the blood round, his recovery from effort and so on. His power output is very, very similar to those of Miguel Indurain, and he's given us an Indurain-type performance today to smash the rest of the field out of sight. That's the provisional result on your screen at the moment. Interesting to see people like Jaskula up there in 8th spot, Seberg in their 9th, Bogard just below. So some names that we haven't seen in the Tour so far popping up as a result this time trial stage, but no way could any of them displace the man who comes up to get yet another yellow jersey and another lion to add to his vast collection, now increasing all the time. Well, that's it then, Stephen. Great day. I know you like the time trial, but this was a real superb performance.
It was. It was really an incredible performance, something we only see Miguel Indurain do in the past few years, so I'm really looking forward to the Alps now myself.
And there we are, a battle by Virenque. It didn't come to much, but he managed to move himself closer to battle the 2nd and 3rd spots. Myself, David Duffield, and my co-commentator, Steve Roche. It's time for us to say bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Adamant.
The Tour de France was brought to you by